this is Kimberlea, and Yoga Snack is our bite-sized podcast where Robbie and I serve up nourishing discussions on yoga, astrology, nourishment, and mindset.
We mix wisdom with personal experiences to serve up quick, insightful conversations that nourish your practice and add flavor to your daily life.
Ready for a quick bite of wisdom? Let's dig in.
Welcome to Yoga Snack. This week we were going to talk about holiday cooking and baking, but we've actually decided to change course. We're going to still talk about nourishment, but it has more to do with disillusionment along the way. And what maybe once was enjoyable and a placeholder has kind of lost its flavor a little bit. So welcome, and we're glad you're here. And Robbie, do you want to say more about disillusionment along the path? Where are you at right now? And
So sure, yeah. So like you said, we were going to talk about holiday and holiday baking, and I'm sure I was thinking about diving in on what type of cookies you can make this year. But ultimately, in my journey with my health and everything, I've learned some lessons along the way, and it's not necessarily all that holiday indulgence. Just didn't feel like it was resonating with me and with my current lifestyle the way I thought. I started baking this year. I guess you could say professionally, but just my micro bakery, and I was all excited, like, oh, I'm going to make all these cookies. And I did for Thanksgiving. I made a bunch of sweet treats, and they were delicious. But when I started feeling how eating them and even the process of making them was sort of making me feel internally, I was sort of starting to walk back that desire to do all those sweet treats. And the reason why I started baking was because, the human body is not necessarily supposed to eat wheat. It's not designed to eat wheat.
Okay.
And back in the old days, we did a lot of fermentation to wheat and flour and things like that to make our bodies enjoy it more. And also, they didn't have all those commercial yeast that would puff up a loaf of bread and
to make it digestible, is that?
Yeah, to make it digestible. So if you think about when you eat, say you go and you get pizza from any of the chain pizza places.
Yep.
And you eat it, and that night or the next day you're like, I guess my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times we blame it on maybe the cheese or whatever meat was on the pie, but 9 times out of 10, it's that dough that is tearing your gut up. Because that dough has not had the proper amount of time to rest and to ferment. Because the longer a dough ferments, the more of the proteins that it breaks down on its own. And
So
that's
it
less
almost
work
is
that
like
your body has to do.
So is it just so it's like digesting for you before you even put it in your mouth?
Yeah, it's doing the work
kind of
for
what I
you.
understand.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah,
as
so
it ferments, it's like a digestive process, and when it doesn't have that, our body has to work
Right.
harder to end up with the same result, but it's like working twice the amount.
Right. So it's the same thing as when someone goes vegetarian, stops eating meat. Think about all the work and the heat that has to go in to break down an animal protein. A lot less to break down a vegetable. In most cases,
Yeah.
we cook vegetables and it helps with that process. But sort of the same thing, that fermentation of the bread is almost like the cooking process before you bake the bread. You're breaking down these complex compounds in this bread, these proteins, and it's just aiding in that digestion process so that your body doesn't have to work so hard. And that bloating and that digestion issues is just a symptom of your body having to heat up, causing gas. It's causing all these byproducts from having to work a little extra harder to digest these things.
Yeah.
And so just looking at that and knowing that for myself, and I sort of, we go through these like cycles of amnesia, I think, when we're on our path, and we forget some of the lessons we learned along the way.
Or we don't even know we've learned them yet, right?
Exactly.
Because it's like we've changed, but we don't always bring that change with us into this new season that we're so used to having abundance or, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
it makes you a little sad, don't you think? Like, are you a little kind of, I don't know, disappointed? Like, you're like, oh, this used to be so, exciting. This used to be so joyful or so fulfilling or so adventurous or creative even,
Yeah. And it does feel a little sad. Like, I think you and I talked, a little while back, and I had gone to a concert, and when I got there, it was just like this endless rat race of the people who were there to just fill up on intoxicants, alcohol and weed and God knows what else, and to just stand there and to look around and examine like the overall like state that the room was in.
Yeah.
And it's felt like, oh, we're all just here numbing ourselves to get through this experience. Like, is this even about fun?
Yeah.
Or is this whole thing that we've concocted, being in this small room with these bright lights and these loud noises, is that a nervous system disruptor? And we're all just numbing ourselves to be able to put up with it, like to make our bodies feel like this is okay.
Yeah.
And I think
maybe
that is a little bit of it.
Yeah. And that's I go back to this all the time. It's like without examination. And a lot of times, we like pregame before we even get to an event, and we don't really, we're not there fully present. And I think there's lots of ways to be human. I think there's plenty of ways and there's reasons why people do it. And maybe that's the highlight and the enjoyment of their life. So there's not a judgment, but it's like that discernment for yourself. And when you've shifted and you take your shifted self into this new holiday or event or friendship or relationship or family or, goodness, we shift and we evolve. And as we do that, not everything is evolving along with us. Sometimes what it's done is it's sort of like taken off of the dust on the lens that we've been looking through. And now we're seeing it really clearly. And it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's really disappointing. And it's like, oh, our holiday special is all about disappointment. Welcome to yoga. And I think you even said to me after that concert, you were like, I don't even think I can enjoy things anymore. And I think my point as we were talking about this together was, you may not enjoy that like you used to. It may not be something that you seek out, regularly as a form of entertainment or enjoyment. But I think what it does is it opens us up to other things that we haven't been receptive to come in and to give us maybe even more enjoyment. That the enjoyment we were experiencing was through substance, right? And that's fine. People choose that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But to be clear and sober and to find things that actually really resonate with you, I think there's more waiting for us to enjoy. And a lot of times it's stuff that's right in front of us, and the simplicity of even just nature. Things become more pristine. We start to enjoy simplicity, like just like you're baking, like you use just a few ingredients, and there's this simplicity to it and this kind of honesty to it. that resonates with our body, and there's less disruption. My very first yoga retreat that I led was in Costa Rica, and it was at the sustainable resort, and they actually had animals on the resort, and they weren't vegetarian. But they cared for their animals, and it was, I mean, gosh, they took vegetable scraps and they made soap for us, and they were growing stuff on the roofs of of the homes there, vegetable gardens, and insulating it through, earth roofs and things like that. And it was really quite fascinating. And so we went on a tour of the grounds at one point, and he said, you probably are wondering, why do we have animals so close to the dining area? Like, shouldn't there be smells? Shouldn't there be, like, why would you do that? And he said, because we feed the animals what their bodies are designed to digest. And because of that, there is no putrefaction inside of their digestive tract. That putrefaction is what creates the really disturbing smells that a lot of times we experience. And that's even in our own bodies. Like, we are animals too. And I'm not saying the air shit shouldn't stink. Okay. Like, I'm just saying that there is some, clarity that happens when we start to eat in a way, and even digest our life in a way that there's less byproduct that is foul and disturbing. It doesn't mean it's not still there, but it changes. That even changes, and it does require some choices. It requires some discipline. But over time, when you get further and further away from those disruptions, when you do enter back into it, it's way more disturbing. Kind of like maybe your concert experience, where you're just like, whoa, 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 hang on. What are we doing here, folks? I thought we were here to jam and listen to music. I love music. And, and at the essence of it, maybe, I know when I was younger, for sure, like the thing was the party. It wasn't, the music. It wasn't the dancing. It was actually about checking out and, and numbing. And I think we just start to see life a little differently. And it is disappointing sometimes, because we're like, now what? These things that I thought I enjoyed, I used to enjoy, they're now not really anything that stands out. And it's like, now what?
Yeah, it's that that song by BB King, "The Thrill Is Gone."
Oh
man,
cue the music.
Man, that song, it's hit a little bit more real lately, like when it comes to things like that. Man, the thrill that used to exist just doesn't hit the same way. And I'd like to say that, in the moment, that it wasn't coming from a place of judgment, but that's not true either. I think it was like, and it was, I think it was more like, it was more looking back at my past behavior and like, ooh, was this how that was playing out with me? Like, is this really like what it looked like from the outside looking in? And I think sadly, yes, but also a lot of messages came from those experiences for me. Like,
Sure.
I feel like psychedelics at concerts were a big, before I had yoga to lean back on, that was a big, like, that's where I went. Like, that was like, big release experience. And I even felt that, this week, I went to a concert on Wednesday. I was like, oh, like, we're all here releasing, like, towards the end when we're all dancing. It was like, we're actually like working things out of ourselves through these dance movements. Like at one point I felt like I was like, oh, this is all just to like work stickiness out of your hearts. Like, I had that like flash in the moment as we were all dancing. Like, I even felt like something like sticky in my shoulder, and I just started like wiggling it out, and it just felt like it was just a working out of my being, through the dancing and through the movement. So I think there's still value in and experiencing that, because I mean, it's something that cultures have been doing for thousands of years, is
Yeah.
gathering around, dancing to music, and
Yeah.
and using it as some sort of prayer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Our
that's
bodies.
ultimately where I think I wound around from, like, this moment of like, oh, this isn't the same as it used to be, to, okay, this may have a different purpose
Mm,
than I didn't actually see before.
mm. Yeah. And the ability to see, right, is like from the clarity of mind and like peeling back some of those layers. There's a poem by Emery Hall. I believe it's called A Thousand Different Women. And she talks about how she's been 1,000 different women, and how we forgive them all because they are the foundation of the temple that we stand in now. And I think that's really beautiful because it's like, sometimes we have this perspective and we're like, oh no, well, look at all this time that I've wasted, but that was all necessary. And it's about our evolution. And it's, some of it, it's like growing up. And the things that you enjoyed at 17 probably shouldn't be exactly the same as what you enjoy at 47, or,
Right.
you were 37. And in fact, I'm in Bonaire. I'm visiting my mom for the holiday, and I came in, and the community that she lives in, she has a condo, and she lives here full time, but there's still people that come in and out, as vacationers. And there's a group of men that were here, that my mom was telling me about, and they're probably in their 30s or 40s, and they were like getting, trashed every night and being really loud and obnoxious and staying up to all hours. And they like had all these, alcohol bottles lined up on the bar that you could see them when you walked out by the ocean. And there's this platform out by the ocean that my mom does yoga at every morning. And she always spells out, something's cute on it. It's like right now the word says grateful with dried coral and shells and stuff. And she'd gone out there and they had rearranged it to say penis.
Oh my gosh.
And then they had rearranged it to say dickhead. And then they had rearranged it and said Zoo Crew 24. And they all came outside one night. My mom was telling me, with these these plastic animal horse heads on, and they were like partying. And and I'm like, recapturing youth, okay, like, but there's essence of it that you can recapture and still claim that you've evolved as a human being. And that's kind of what I'm interested in. It's not to judge. um there's some discernment that I'm hoping for, because we all are on our own like path and our own journey and our own personal evolution. And I don't know that everybody's here for the same reason that I'm here. And so it's like, who am I to say that you're, like you're doing it wrong? I think there's a lot of ways to be human, and there's a lot of ways to experience this human life. But I can only speak from my experience. And that's, my experiences, those things slowed me down. They hesitated my growth. They numbed me. They didn't allow me to be fully present in my life in the way that I really think deeply long to be. And that yoga is an experiential path. It's like 99% experience. It's 1% theory, and it's 99% doing it. And a lot of people, get kind of caught up on that. But it's like, it's an experiential path. Like, you're supposed to be experiencing your things, and it gives you sort of this filtration system, if you will, to filter things through and to line them up. Or at least that's what it's done for me. And then you get to kind of frame your life around that based off of what you're finding. But you should be changing and you should be evolving inside of this practice. That's what the requirements are. It's not about being the same. And that means along with it, there's some grief that happens because there are just things that we thought were probably placeholders in our life that we're always going to feel the same way, whether it's the holidays or, a favorite event that we used to go to, or, and it doesn't mean we still can't derive enjoyment and pleasure from it, but it's important to see that it's changed and it's different and you're different and you've changed along too. And I think that even goes with people in our life. We've kind of touched on this in a previous episode. It's like, we're not all changing and evolving at the same rate, and not everybody's going to come along with us. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of a grief process in that, even because there's that desire for permanence in our life. And that's just, it's not the way life goes. Like, life is always changing and evolving and reiterating and shifting. So yeah, it's kind of a downer sometimes. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, even though it does seem like a downer, I think ultimately yoga offers you the skills to be able to look at it and to not be bogged down completely when you look at it and say, oh, this has changed. I think it's a little bit like it softens that blow a little bit as well. Like, it allows you to see through a different lens, and also allows you to let go. Allows you to not cling so tightly to the thing that was, and to have your eyes set on where you're headed, I guess.
Yeah. And then maybe too, we have more clarity around where we can intervene and make a difference. Mm-hmm. That's still really hard for me. Like, but it's better. I'm better at it than I used to be, and I think that's the thing. It's like, I used to overly intervene. I used to really, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I not engaging enough at all? Like, am I not participating? And, and so it's kind of this pulsation. But yeah, I think it's looking at what is actually filling us up and what's allowing us to really embrace a well-lived life, not just the illusion of it, and that we maybe get closer to fulfillment. And in my experience so far, what I've found is, like, it actually turns out to be more simple, and the simplicity of things versus it being really disorganized and chaotic and scattered and complex, that it's like simplicity. That's even like sitting by the ocean, and there's just a fulfillment inside of me that occurs, that being busy and filling my plate with a lot of things doesn't quite hit the mark. So I think we're changing, and congratulations everybody who's changing. And when things don't feel the same as they used to, even though there's a sadness sometimes that goes along with it, it's probably a mark of your evolution. And, at some point we can decide, like, we're like, oh, I want to go back. And you can. It's probably hard, but it's still this active choice. My teacher would always say, yoga is an invitation. It's not an obligation. Nobody's making you do this. Even Robbie, nobody's making you do this. Like, you're doing it yourself, and you're choosing it. As a matter of fact, I know, right? I'm in another country. You can't point to me and tell me I'm making you do it anymore. So it's when we realize that too, I think it's also a reality check. We're like, oh, this actually, we're choosing it. And it doesn't mean it's like easy, peachy keen. Like, there's a lot of confrontation that comes along with it. and we get confronted with the things that we thought were maybe helping us or healing us or soothing us or comforting us. And yes, they were. And things are going to continue to change. And those things that were always in that place of comfort, maybe it's like the idea of the holiday is way more exciting than the actual holiday. I remember like it was like so stressful, and it's like, you know, my kids have these really fond memories, and I'm like, yay on you, I'm heading to the Caribbean. Love you all. But this, you know, this is actually, you know, I want to be with my mom, and I, you know, want to be in nature and the ocean, and have some simplicity around this very, very busy, complex holiday season that I just I'm not gonna engage with in the way that I used to. And that's okay. And not everybody's gonna choose like me, and how cool is that, right? Like, that's important. But it's the fact that we're choosing, and we're paying attention to what we are choosing. That self-awareness is the yoga path, you know? So it's choosing what we put in our bodies. It's choosing to take things off your menu. This, like what you did, you know, you're just like, wow, this is not in alignment anymore. This isn't resonating.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to those goofy guys that were here. One evening I went for a walk, and I was like, ooh, if I see them, I'm going to say something. And I was kind of thinking, like, what did I want to say? Because, you know, we all do that. And unfortunately, I never got to confront him. But I was just going to say, you know, you misread the vibe here. You misread the vibe, and you're imposing your vibe on this, you know, this community. And like, this vibe is appropriate somewhere else. Like, go do it. Go find the bar and, you know, everything else. But you misread the vibe, and that was
You might like Cancun a little better than that.
You might like that resort down the way. Like,
no offense to Cancun, but
I'm sure there's some really low vibe. Or it's not that it's low vibe, but it's like, you know, there's something else that people are doing here, and we start to kind of recognize that. And that's the same thing. Like, I could put myself in a situation where I'm just like, ooh, like, my vibe does not match this, you know, like this, and I'm not contributing to their vibe either. And so, you know, we can exit stage left, and it goes both ways. So it's less about saying who's right or who's wrong, but it's like reading the situation and aligning to what's most appropriate in that situation. And that's discernment, right? That's discernment. And we discern on our mat all the time. You know, hopefully we're discerning like what's appropriate, how much effort, whether to bend our knee more or less, or, you know, really look at what's happening in this moment. And so what we're doing is we're practicing so we can take that out into our lives, and really find that same discernment in the way that we're entering the world, because that's actually where it matters the most. Our mat is such an insignificant amount of appropriateness of how we enter the world. But we have to practice at some level. Not, you don't have to be on your mat to practice. You can meditate, you can study, you can, you know, like there's lots of angles of yoga, but the practice is so important, because the other 23 hours of the day that you're in your life, or the 20, you know, the 22 and a half, whatever, however long your practice is daily, is really important. And that's what we're doing, is we're shaping that way that we're showing up in the world. It's not just about stretching and breathing. I mean, it includes it. So happy holidays, Robbie.
As to you.
Thank you. And the solstice is coming up. We had a big full moon last night too. That was really beautiful and illuminating. I used to miss those things when I was younger. You know, like I didn't see full moons. I didn't make time to witness that. And I do now. And I think that there's so much appreciation and joy for the simplicity of life and I was missing it all so much. Looking outside of myself for so many things and missing like what's right in front. And I think that's what, where I'm at on my path right now is just trying to simplify and still find delight in them.
Yeah. We talked about how I was like, I don't know if I know what joy looks like or feels like right now.
Yeah.
And since that moment, I've just been so like hyper trying to like just root myself and all the things that there is to be grateful for that are all around me every day. The place that I live, the people that are in my life, all the good food that I get to eat. Because a lot of people don't get that, especially it's a big thing to keep in mind, especially around these holidays when we're all maybe indulging, is to just keep in the back of your mind or in the front of your mind that if you have a chance to celebrate these things, you got it pretty good.
Yeah, to cultivate deep gratitude and not to shame ourselves over it, but to really approach it. That's really beautifully said. Yeah, to have that gratitude at the forefront. So, yeah. Well, that's probably a wrap, you guys. We are not going to give you recipes. We're not going to talk about food more than we already have. But I think it's important that we have conversations that remind us that it's not always like peachy keen and feel good stuff on this path, that sometimes the times that we're supposed to be experiencing joy collectively, maybe in traditions around the holiday season, sometimes it really, pulls back the veil and it doesn't feel as good as it used to. And that's probably okay and normal. So I guess I'll leave that with the listeners is like, have you experienced that? Do you experience that? And do you, we'd love to hear you in the comments and let us know how you're doing and also maybe what you're grateful for. And your likes, comments, shares really matter. You can follow the podcast. That's really important for us so we can keep generating these conversations. And we just really, I'll speak for myself. I really appreciate our viewers, our listeners. Robbie, I really appreciate you. We keep finding a way to crank out these episodes no matter where we are because I think it matters. And whether it's, one person or 1,000 people who hear this, yoga is a path that we're on, and it's nice to feel community and solidarity in some of these experiences that are all sometimes a little disorienting. Shoot, I was getting pro pose, but not really. There's more to it. It's a little more complex. So yeah.
Beautifully said. I also have mixed gratitude for you, and I'm very, very grateful that I get to do this with you each week. So,
well,
thank you for
guys.
being you.
Yeah, thank you, and everybody just have the best day, and we hope to hear from you. Please follow, like, share, subscribe, all the things, and we'll see you next time.